Welcome to Focus on the Family Facebook Live in Australia. My name is Brett Ryan. I'm the CEO of Focus on the Family Australia. And as you can see, my wife is not joining with me tonight. Unfortunately, she's not feeling up to it. So it's up to me. So unfortunately, you're going to have the beast rather than the beauty. So hopefully you can get by with it. Just me this evening. But we want to hear from you. We want to interact with you as best we can. The technology that I've got in front of me is going to be as good, as clever as possible. One of my team members is going to interact with you, and I'll do my best. If I don't address it during this next 30 minutes, I will get back to you as soon as I can. So this area, and there's such an important topic about talking about social media. It's around us, it surrounds us, it is everywhere, and particularly young people, but also adults are getting involved and hooked on this. And by no means am I going to exhaust everything that I'm going to be able to share with you this evening on this such an important topic, but I'm going to give you some tips along the way, or maybe some things that you may not be aware of, or some things that need to be reinforced in your household to be able to control the area of social media. Some people are saying, well, when I grew up, I didn't have technology and I survived. Well, unfortunately today, social media is like oxygen for teens and young people. They need technology. It's they can't get enough of it. And unfortunately, because of that, it can be used as a great discipline tool, because if you take it away, they will be so annoyed and they'll try and be on their best behavior. On the flip side is they are so dependent upon it, but that's where they get their self-esteem, their self-worth. They feel like, if I don't get noticed, where will I get noticed? And social media is where that takes place. And we do know that social media and there are some benefits, which we'll talk about in a few moments, but the negative aspects of it include depression, low self-esteem, and unfortunately a high level of suicidal ideation. But we're not going to be talking about all the negatives so much today, but we want you to be open-minded about how you can help your young people navigate this world. And there'll be some things that you're going to say, oh, I've heard that before, but there's some things that we need to reiterate or reinforce and be able to help you so you can help your young people thrive in this space. And they can thrive, even on social media. But we want to hear from you. We want to welcome Andrew Bell. I'm going to look down. He's our toppest fan. He's our top fan, and he's from Toowoomba. And we want to hear from you. Anyone that you'd like to share this with, because this is such an important topic, and I know many families are grappling with this. So tune in, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat. There are so many different types of apps and applications that we're never going to be able to cover them all. But I'm going to talk about maybe 10 to 12 of them briefly tonight. And we know there'll be some people there who don't have a faith, but we at Focus on the Family are proud to have a faith heritage. And we're going to use some Bible verses from time to time that may help you make sense of why we're talking about this. There's one particular verse, and it's from Philippians. It says, whatever is true, noble, right, lovely, admirable, think about these things. They're going to be praiseworthy. They're going to be trustworthy. And this is the thing, that social media is not always trustworthy. It's not always true. It's not always of a good report. And our head, our mind has to start thinking about those things. And that's a filter that will encourage you, even if you don't have a faith, to think about, and helping your kids become a filter about what they allow through their ears and what they allow through their eyes. Don't you love that I've got a mobile phone with the Bible verse? I thought that was very clever. So anyway, that's just me. I saw this meme that came out, and it actually said how social media works. And you might be able to relate to this, and we actually see it so often. Someone writes, I prefer mangoes to oranges. And this random person, which we call a keyboard warrior, often that's the term that's used, and it says this random person responds to your comment about preferring mangoes to oranges. So this person will say, so basically what you're saying is that you hate oranges? You also failed to mention pineapples, bananas, and grapefruits. Educate yourself. This is the world we live in. There's a narrative that's being formed There's this great verse in Romans that says, Romans 12 verse 1, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but renew your mind. We don't allow the patterns to form our thought processes, but we have to actually allow our kids to be more discerning about what they allow through their ears and through their eyes, and think about what is true, noble, and good report, and not be persuaded by what others say, especially random people. Yes, we can listen to people who we know and we can trust and people that have earned that right, but we can be so easily influenced by what other random people, anonymous people can say about us, and it can be so overwhelmingly. And this is the reason why young people are grappling with this, because they're taking all this information from other people who haven't really, literally earned that right to speak into their lives, and they're being influenced by them. And this is what we have to help our young people navigate this incredible world called social media. I mentioned that there is some good and the bad, and some of the good is, well, it's a way of staying connected. And during COVID-19, we've been able to connect with so many people. We've been Zoom meetinged out and we've been FaceTimed, and we can connect with so many different people. And this is something that we can say, hey, this is a good thing. But then we do find a negative is actually it's a very superficial connection. We don't get to see body language and tone as well as we do through a two-dimensional image. Face-to-face is so much more effective. But we also see only through comments, and it doesn't allow tone and sarcasm, and people can take it literally. So we know that the negative on social media is it can be very superficial. It gives us an ability to interact with like-minded people who think like you and act like you, and that's a good thing. But it's also a trap that it only gives you a one-sided perspective. Sometimes through the algorithms, such as on Facebook, allows you to comment or like something, and then the algorithm will continue to feed you with that same information, that same one-sided thought processes. So then you come to a conclusion that everyone thinks that way. And you wonder why no one thinks like you when they counteract you. And this can be a trap that you actually assume that everyone is thinking the same thing. But I would encourage you as a parent to actually help your young people to discern and look at all the avenues from different perspectives, not just from the one-sided perspective. It enhances creativity and allows you to share ideas and music. And I love that idea on social media. So you can interact with like-minded people and you can enhance the creativity. The negative thing is that when you share things, they can be obviously traced back to you. And if you make some comments that don't conform to the patterns of this world or the narrative that's been set before you, you can actually be accused of being racist and bigoted and homophobic or all the different types of things. And we've seen this in the Black Lives Matter, that if you didn't like something, then you can be accused of a racist. And it's by far from the truth, but because you didn't go along with something, then it can be traced back to you. And obviously for young people, they don't realize that all of those social media posts, everything that they communicate is there permanently. And so when they go for their future job and future employment opportunities, guess what? They can follow that. Their future employer can actually have a look at, is this the real person? During the interview, they can see one dimension, but then they have a look at your social media profile and see another. And so you have to be very, very careful about that. Another thing you can do is you can do fundraising and you can get behind certain campaigns, and that's a really positive thing. In fact, fundraising has been a very, very popular way through social media to raise money. And I have to say, I'll just put this through. Focus on the Family is fundraising at the moment. If you're in a position to give towards the Ministry of Focus on the Family, we love to fundraise, but we are going to send you multiple things. But we do want to be very careful how we communicate with our followers and how we can just suggest, and we don't demand or expect people to give to us. But this program that you're seeing today through Facebook Live is only made more possible because of generous donations from people like you. But you can also, the negative is that you can get unwanted people connecting with you. You can get unsolicited advertising and material, but you can also have people who aren't coming to you for friendly manner. They've actually got a very negative thought, and we'll talk about that as we go along. We can communicate with our peers and from all over Australia or around the world. It's an amazing thing, and it can give young people particularly a sense of belonging, where they fit into the world, and that's a really positive thing. But you can also, as I mentioned before, they can actually be driven by the likes or the comments, especially when you change your profile and you get everyone saying how handsome you are or how beautiful you are, and people get fed by this virtual world that actually saying you are only important by the number of people who are following you or the number of people who like you or comment about you. And that is not a healthy thing. Another thing is there's a thing called the streak, and one of my sons has been doing this with a number of people, and they comment every day on some sort of platform, and that can be a positive thing. It means that there's a connection, but that is a good thing. But it also, the streak, as I said, can be a negative thing, and they can be so obsessed with keeping the streak alive. So, for example, if you use technology as a form of discipline, that you remove technology, they could freak out because their streak is no longer going to continue, and they would fight tooth and nail to ensure that their streak is continuing. So that's the good and the bad. And we also have to know that the bad is that whatever they see or read or hear is not always real. And unfortunately, many young people aren't discerning enough because their front of their brain is still developing, and you as a parent need to be their prefrontal cortex, and you have to start giving them some ideas to help them. Have you considered? Have you thought about this? What do you think would be the outcome if you interact with that? And start challenging them about their thought processes. Because what often we see and we hear of fake news and everything, and you think that whatever is on the social media platforms is true, it's real, but it's not always the case. So here I'm going to share you a few different apps that many kids are getting into, and you as a parent should be fully aware of what's going on. So I'm just going to go and have a look at, James is back, fantastic. I didn't see you last week, so James, good to see you here. We've got people from Belinda, this is fabulous. I'm waiting in the car for a ballet lesson. Hey, that's tasking there, fantastic. James actually suggested that be aware of scammers, and that's so very true. And there's just so many different things that we have to be aware of as parents. And our kids aren't have the ability to think of all these things. And they're just a here and now. So that is reason why you are their prefrontal cortex. So a couple of things you should be aware of. Apps that many young people are involved with, and many of them require age verification. But there is no way of checking that. And even though they might say 18 plus or 17 plus, many teens, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, and some even younger are getting and downloading these apps. And you should be fully aware, or at least versed a little bit more. And I'm not going to go into much detail, but here are a few that you should be aware of. One is that you might see an app called Calculator Plus. Very innocent. Looks like they're being studious, but that Calculator Plus is where they could hide folders of videos and photos, and to keep them secret. And so if they're keeping things secret, what are they keeping secret about? And why do they need to do that? And so just be aware that this is something else. And it's something that's very similar. It's called HIP. It's a Hide It Pro. It's another little app that you can leave different things, music and different things that you say, I don't want mum and dad to know that I've got this. And so if you see on their phones or on their tablets, this is something that you should be aware of. Snapchat is advanced in a while. I remember when my younger son was wanting to get Snapchat. At the time, Snapchat used to be lasting for about, it was a medium where you could share a photo or an image, and it would last only 8 to 10 seconds, or you could vary that. Now they've extended it to a longer period of time, but allegedly it disappeared. So once it was looked at and the person dismissed it, it disappeared. But we know on technology, nothing ever disappears. And if someone takes a screenshot, then it can be shared on and on and on. So there was a lot of danger with having Snapchat. There's a thing called Whisper, and Whisper is an app where young people can actually confess to different things. Things that they're dealing with. And I think it's anonymous because you don't have to actually register, but you can actually be sharing deep, dark secrets or confessions, and other people are going to see and read these things. And some people, predators and other people, pedophiles, can actually groom your child through the Whisper app. There's a thing called Ask FM, and this is another sort of a forum where kids can ask anything and everything, and all the people that are on that medium can give you suggestions. And it's just like going up to a stranger and asking a stranger for advice for you. You don't know them, your kids don't know them, so why would you ask them? Well, this is what this app is all about. You can ask anything and everything, and you don't always get sound advice. There's another one called Vora, and this is probably a little bit more specific, and this is not a common app to download, but if you see this on your child's applications, just be a concern and ask a few questions. It's actually a sort of a dietary app, and it monitors your calorie intake, but it also for young people can be quite obsessed about how many calories they're having every day. And it also can feed into having a eating disorder or anorexia. So this is something that many young people have been caught in this because they start being competitive with themselves about restricting even further in their diet. So if you see that on your child's app, ask them a question. It might be they just need to lose some weight and they think it was really good, but this is something that's making young people consider that they have to fast for longer and longer periods of time, and it is not a healthy way of living. Instagram, you know, there's cool features, and you can, Photoshop yourself and write comments about you. And it's not a real world, it's a virtual world, but this is another thing. And I'm not saying Instagram is bad, and I'm not saying any of these apps are fully bad, but you have to ask the question and be curious with your kids and ask them why they have it. Kik is another one. It's another platform that you communicate with. I mean, Facebook is really old school, and not many young people do Facebook, but there's so many different variants called Kik, for example. And this is, you can message complete strangers, and they know you and you know them only through the internet, and that is not a safe way of communicating. Omegle is another chat room through strangers, similar to Kik. And just being aware, and there's no age verification. It might say there is something for young people. Kik is much more for younger people, but then anyone can get on those areas. You've heard of Tinder. Tinder is a dating site, and you can get this, what they call a hookup site, that you can actually find people on the internet to actually connect with, maybe go on dates, but it also can go further, that you can actually have physical intimacy with another person. But there's a thing called Yubo, and that's similar to Tinder, but it's for teens. And it's maybe not necessarily to go to the full length of being physically intimate with somebody, but it is a dating site, if you, for want for a better word, for teens. You've heard of TikTok, and there's another one it started off with called Musical.ly, and all of these things are actually, you can post short videos. And that seems pretty innocent enough, and you can do lip syncing, and there's a lot of fun that can be had on these apps, but also it can become quite provocative, and there's some quite risque videos on that are posted, and there's no really formal regulation. And if you're allowing your kids to look at these things, they can be trapped and looking at this. And it's amazing how you could start looking at TikTok, and you can go hours upon hours upon hours of looking at different images that last for about, 60 seconds or 15 seconds to 90 seconds, all of these things, and you're never too sure what they might be looking at. And there's another one called Tumblr, which is a sort of a cross between a blog and Twitter. And again, you can share things from all over the world for people who you don't really know, and it may just be simply someone on a superficial relationship. So they're just some apps that you should be aware of, Mum and Dad. I'd love to be able to hear any more comments that you might have. I'm just going to go through here. Just going to go through them a little bit. Let us know what you've got. Snapchat, as Belinda said, Snapchat has a maps feature that allows people to know exactly where the operator is. Oh, that is so it's a real trap that people will know where you are at any particular time. It's dangerous territory. We've got a few other people making some comments here. I can't go through it on my phone at the moment, but we want to hear from you and love to be able to have any more comments that you have. So here are some safety tips that you need to impart into your kids. One is being informed what you're doing tonight. Thank you so much. But we want more people to this, and we would love for you to tag your friends and family members into this so they can hear more helpful advice on how to navigate some of the social media. We need to maybe even look up some more about information. There's plenty of information available on the internet. You need to set some boundaries and some limits and restrictions and allow a level of transparency, which means if you have allowing them to have access to, let's just say, for example, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat, whatever it is, you have to allow your kids to give you permission to be their friend. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be like Big Brother and watch everything they do, but they have to give you permission to allow you to be like a big brother or a big sister to oversee what's going on in their world. Don't embarrass them, don't interact with them, but you are aware of what they're looking at. And so that is a level of transparency. But you also have to put some restrictions and limits, like we talked about technology last week or the week before, about how we can restrict and allow your kids to be included in that journey. And the more likely to say, hey, there's certain hours that you can watch or look at technology for certain periods of time, but after 9 o'clock, for example, no more. Not allowed to look at it in the night time, because we see this time and time again. Many young people are looking up and keeping themselves awake, and they're getting sleep deprivation because they don't want to miss out on something. They want to make sure that the notification is right there, and they're being interrupted all the time. This is incredible that your children could feel so obligated to know exactly what's going on in the world, and they can't turn it off. And this is the reason why you need to set some boundaries. You need to teach them responsible use. It may seem very obvious, but they don't accept everyone's friend requests. Obviously, they like to have so many followers and so many friends, but if they don't know them personally, why would they accept that friendship? We at Focus on the Family, we accept a lot of friendships because we're a media organisation, and we're happy to do that. But at the same time, if it's my personal one, I don't accept everyone unless I know them personally. And I would encourage you to impart that into your kids, and not to share any personal information with just anyone, only people who you know. And you have to also know there are some legal obligations, and I haven't got the time to talk about it so much, but sexting is becoming such a big issue where young people send partially clothed or naked pictures of themselves to their friends and family. And it's a new way of flirting. I know this is a shocking thing to hear, but this is something you have to instill in your kids. And if I had more time, I'd love to talk to you more about that. But there are some legal ramifications. And every state is different in Australia, can you believe it or not? And if you send an image to someone who's within 2 years, it's okay. But if it's 3 years, they can actually be charged. And if they receive that and send it on to somebody else, they can actually be charged as an accessory or passing on illegal material. So these are some ramifications that your kids may be saying, hey, it's innocent, they don't know my face, but they don't know where that's going to end up. And this is a real challenge for young people to have. We need to teach them that what people say about them, if they are cyberbullied, that's being bullied on social media, to be able to let you know about that and not trying to avoid that. And this is what happened to a young lady. You might have heard about her in Northern Territory. She used to be the face of the tourism called Dolly. And she was being cyberbullied, and she didn't let anyone know. And her parents found out after she had taken her own life through suicide and realized that she was being bullied. It is such a dangerous territory. So you need to instill in your kids what strategies they can do when they're being bullied. Take an interest in what they're interested in. Don't judge them if they're interested in, certain games and there's certain platforms and certain forums, take an interest in them along the journey. So there's no secrets. And the more that you're interested in them, they're more likely to be able to share different things. And just like you don't want to accept everyone's invitation, you don't want to pass on private information, especially passwords. And we've seen this and hearing stories of people getting into another person's platform and pretending that it's them, and then because they know their passwords, are being able to get into and actually making posts. And we can see that leading to very significant and detrimental impact on them personally, the person who sent it, that is illegal, but also the person who is accused falsely because someone has shared something on their password. But also that opens up to banking and other areas of privacy. So we don't want that to happen. So here are some things that I'd like for you to consider teaching your kids. A lovely golden rule: do unto others that you would have them do unto you. You know, if you don't want people to talk about you negatively, don't talk negatively about them. There's a thing called the keyboard warriors, and this is something that's very dangerous in our culture today. And we see this cyberbullying happen. And so we need to teach our kids that just because somebody else does it doesn't mean that you should enter into it. Do unto others that you'd have them do unto you. It's a good golden rule. Because they're prefrontal cortex, they don't think through the consequences. Train them and equip them to actually say, hey, think before you click. Because we are all one bad decision away with one click. One click can actually lead to a detrimental thing. And we talked about that when we talked about with Dr. Patricia Rirakun about the areas and dangers of pornography. And I just went on a social media platform today, and it was just through Facebook, and I clicked on a video and it looked innocent. And then when you scroll down over all the other videos, then it led to some very dark and very provocative different videos. And every child, just a one click away, can actually look at all this information. It's a dangerous, dangerous territory. And we have to allow our kids to become filters, not sponges. Don't share things that you don't want others to share. And this is where it comes in that sexting, where you might send images. And I've heard of young people saying, well, I didn't show my face. Well, everything can be photoshopped, and you can put a face onto anyone now. So if you don't want this to be shared with somebody else, if it's embarrassing to you that if someone else got this, don't send it on social media. Make sure that you're familiar with the parameters here about how you can become more private. There are certain settings that your kids can become familiar with, knowing also that you should become more familiar with this. I know that my kids can run rings around me when it comes to technology. We need to become more familiar with this. We don't have to become experts, but we do need to know a little bit more about what's going on and what they're looking at. So you being a person of interest, not being big brother and being dominating, but you should be aware of what your kids are looking at and encouraging them to become more discerning. Don't accept requests, as I said, if you don't know them personally. This is such an important thing. We also need to know that, as I mentioned, you can be their friend, but don't embarrass them or interact with them. And I should also say that even on your social media platform, if you post something, a photo of your kids, you should actually ask their permission, because it may embarrass them. You might say, well, it's only cute and things like that, but they may not want it. And just like we would like our permission, we should ask their permission. We should role model this about how we navigate social media. So don't embarrass them or say, hey, cute, or, I remember a story when they were younger, they had to wear a nappy, and those stories aren't very welcome, especially as you're a teenager, that mum and dad embarrass them. And don't interact with them, just be an observer from afar. And that is where you can ask them questions. Hey, I saw you were interacting with such and such, and they said some not very nice things, and you said some very unpleasant things. Help me understand why you said that. This is something, this little thing here is so powerful. And you need to be able to trust them with this. If you can't trust a child on their tablet or on the computer, don't get them a smartphone, because you can't trust them. If they break the contract or the agreements that you have, then consider the consequences and that you have to follow that through. If trust is broken, you need to make sure that they know that you're serious about that. And it takes a while to earn that trust back. This is such a powerful tool. They need to know that you can trust them and you are allowing them the responsibility for all that it involves. And so many young people are doing things without their parents' knowledge. They have multiple accounts. They have those apps that I said to you. They're hiding things. We want to be able to form a healthy relationship with your kids that they don't have to keep things hidden. They don't have to have different personas and have different accounts. That's not the way we should do life together. We should be able to do life together and be trusting our kids. And if you can trust them, a lot of young people say, oh, if mum and dad trust me, I need to be responsible. And this is where we want to get that. We know that, as I mentioned, we need to have some restrictions and technology. All of these things are so very, very important that you follow it through. And ultimately, you need to be a good role model when it comes to technology and social media and all the different platforms. All of this to say is, as that verse says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is a good report, think and dwell upon those things. We need to help our young people put that through their filter on everything they look at and be more discerning. And also, that includes the gaming world, which I haven't even touched here, but a lot of the gaming world actually interacts with social media, that they can interact with complete strangers. We see that with Fortnite, that your kids can actually interact with people from all over the world at any time of the day and communicate with them. And would you want a stranger coming to your home and playing with your kids? No. Well, we shouldn't allow that to happen on social media. Well, hopefully you found today worthwhile. I do encourage you to share this with your family and friends. As I said, it's by no means exhaustive, but it hopefully starts a conversation. And that conversation should be had with your children. Help me understand, what are you looking at? Help me understand why you want that particular app. Help me understand how many friends you got and how many do you really know. And then they may need to do some cleaning up. These are conversations. You do these things because you want to help your young person thrive. You want your young person to feel safe. You want your young person to navigate this technology world, this social media world, and they can actually know that mum and dad trust them. And hopefully this will be the catalyst for some ongoing conversations. No matter what age and stage, every child is different. And you can't treat every child the same, but hopefully you will feel a little bit more confident, and don't shock them and freak out. Have a conversation. And if you watch your tone, watch your volume, don't react, but just respond, you can actually have these very healthy conversations, because this is where they live. You need to help navigate that in a really positive way. Next week, we're going to be talking about finances. We've got a guest by the name of Alex Cook. He's from Wealth with Purpose, and we're going to have a short couple of videos. We're going to record him prior to the event, but we should have some other things that we're going to be able to do, talking about finances, and I think we all could do with a bit of help in the area of finances. It's not going to be financial advice, and you're not going to be able to sell stock or buy stock. That's not what we're going to be talking about. But how we can manage finances, and also how you can help your young people navigate finances as well. I mentioned we're going to have our next Real Life online marriage conference. It starts on July 7th, and we would love for as many couples to come and join us for that time. The feedback we've had has been very encouraging. We're still trying to be a little bit more help the experience be more positive. And my wife and I, Kate, we have been interacting with a lot of people who sent us questions and asking for further advice. We want to help you, as many people as possible, and that could be you, or you might know somebody. It might be someone who's dating, it might be someone who's going to just about get married. They might have been married for a few years or many years. We can all do with some some fine tuning. Even if you've got a great marriage, let's make it a sensational marriage. We can all do with a little bit of help. And as I mentioned earlier, that social media can be a form of fundraising. And we at Focus on the Family, we are fundraising at the moment. And I don't apologize for asking for this. If you're in a position where you aren't able to give, especially because of the COVID-19, we totally understand. But we know that there are some people who have benefited from the ministry of Focus on the Family Australia through either our radio networks, our social media platforms, our YouTube, our resources, our website, and we need your help so we can continue to help more Australian families thrive. We want to make Christ known as we strengthen relationships in Australian families, and that is only made possible through your generous donation. You can make a tax-deductible, safe donation at our website at families.org.au and give as you are able to, and so we can continue to do resources like this and to be able to equip as many parents and help strengthen as many relationships as possible. And we hope that you'll be able to give generously during this end of financial year appeal. Well, that concludes our Facebook Live for this week. Remember, next week we're going to be talking about finances, and we hope that it'll be a blessing to you. If you've got any questions, and I'm going to be hanging around for a little bit longer, I'll try and respond to you as many as possible, but I am trying to be good stewards with your time as well as my own time. That concludes our night tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next week. God bless.